1st November 2024, beginning of this year's NaNoWriMo, I decided that I'm finally going to get my shit together and write that book. My book was midway through the first draft, and I had taken a break from writing for almost a year. And I thought, what better time than NaNoWriMo to get back into the groove of writing? But then life happened. Sometimes work stuff, family stuff, something or the other always came up, and I fell off track. But hey, if you are in the same spot as me, feeling like your NaNoWriMo didn't go the way you planned it out, and you also ended up procrastinating like I did, don't worry, because in this vlog, I'm going to take you along my journey of the next 5 days and figuring out how you and I can get back on track with our writing goals. So this is day 1, and today my theme is to simply reconnect with my novel. And essentially what I mean by reconnecting is easing into the skin of the story without jumping into writing headfirst. So what I'm going to do today is simply to reconnect with the story, to reconnect with why I even started writing this book, why my commitment for this book is important, what were my reasons and what are my reasons today that I'm coming back to this project. And then of course going into my character sheets, into the plot sheets, my plot outline, reading all of that, skimming over some of the scenes, some of the narrative, and seeing what I've already written, trying to get into the voice of this story, the voice of the narrator, the voice of my characters, where I left it, what more I need to add, how it feels to me, especially since there's been a break. Sometimes when there is a really long break between writing sessions, you can feel detached from your story. So it's really important to go back to your roots of writing that story and see where you were, where you are today, and how you can carry that forward. Let's get started with my favorite step, which is reading my novel journal. I know it's a fancy word, but it is just a notebook, and it's a collection of all my thoughts, feelings, ideas, anything related to this particular story that I wanted to write down on paper. I would do it inside this notebook, and I would just call it a novel journal, because I'm that fancy. And also because I needed to carry it to my university, because this was also my thesis novel. I wanted it to look a bit professional in a certain way, but on the inside, this thing is a big mess, I gotta tell you. But it's one of my favorite things to have a notebook where I can pen down things, go all analog and write down all the notes. I have my own systems inside my laptop, and I of course write on my laptop, but I love having an analog system as well where I can write down all my ideas. Maybe I'll do a video later on just talking about how I organize my notes inside the notebook and what do I write inside my novel journal. But yeah, the first step is for me to just go through this novel journal and get back into the skin of my narrative. So here's something that I do in my novel journal, especially during the ideating phase. I like finding very super specific worksheets or explanations regarding things that I want to execute in the story, and then I print those out and stick them in my novel notebook. That way I remember that, hey, this is something that I want to incorporate into the larger aspect of the story. I found this really fun thing. So on this one page, I think this is again from 2 years ago, I wrote down favorite bookish tropes, and I wrote enemies to lovers romance, love triangle that actually feels realistic and dramatic. The second, it's not in the book, but enigmatic, mysterious narrator, breaking the fourth wall and engaging with the reader and pulling this off successfully. Another thing is a hint of magic, or a lot of magic which is hidden and not really in the face of the reader. And then unexplainable things that can have multiple meanings. Hero with a gray shade. And guess what? All of these are in the story that I'm writing. I think the love triangle probably is not there. I mean, there is a love triangle to look at it realistically, but it's not a love story. But I feel like, now looking back, now that I've almost written this book I'm done 60% of the book. I'm done with 60% of the book, and now I'm looking back at it, it just feels weird. Hey, so in my journal, I also found this really cute bookmark, which now I remember that one of my really good writer best friends have given to me. It says, "You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and loved more than you know." Oh, wonderful. I just finished going through my novel journal, looking at all the ideas, thoughts, notes that I had for this book, and really realigning myself with the vision of why I started writing and where I wanted to take this book. To give you a little more context about this book, because I understand that it may feel really vague if I'm not giving you what the story is about, who the characters are, and all of that jazz. And trust me, I want to tell you everything about this book, but I'm just gatekeeping a little bit because I don't want to accidentally give you any spoilers, especially when I've not even written the first draft yet. But essentially, why I started writing this book, which let's call it Project Slippery Realities, Project SR. I love that. It's my initials, and also this term slippery realities was coined by one of my professors in the MFA program, and I just love that term for some reason because I feel that it really represents the essence of the story. So let's stick with that. I got the idea of this book in 2022, and the main theme of this novel is perspective is magic. That phrase itself is the core, the heart of my story. And if you're aware, I'm also an editor and a writing coach, and the one thing I teach my students all the time is how to find the core of your story, and it's usually one sentence or a phrase like this. So my core of my story is perspective is magic. I know that phrase is still really vague, and I could go on giving you a big explanation about what I mean by it, but I'm of the view that I should let my story do the talking. So for now, let's just say that I'm writing a story which is kind of novel in stories. You know, it's a novel, but there are also some individual stories, and the genre, I think it could be somewhere between magical realism and like a psychological thriller. I don't want to say that. Let's just call it literary fiction. Let's keep it simple, okay? The next step in my process would be to jump into the draft and see what I have so far. However, I've just realized that it's time for a meeting that I have with my writers group. A bunch of my friends from the MFA program decided to still keep in touch after graduation and meet over Zoom once a month or so, critique each other's work, and like just do some chit chat about writing and life in general. So I'm gonna hop on that call, then take a little break and come back to this. So now I'm ready to jump into the draft and have a look at all the narrative details and the story, the way it flows. Just getting acquainted back with the characters, with the voice, all the details that might have blurred slightly in my memory. So bringing them all back into my mind in a refreshed state. That is what I'm going to be doing now. I have the novel divided into 22 chapters. And so far, I've written about 16 chapters. And the 17th chapter is what I had started writing at the beginning of NaNoWriMo, but I didn't get through it. So right now, I'm going to go and read chapter 1 to 16. And maybe also 17, so I can like see where I stopped, where I started, and then make a plan based on that, making a plan, okay, how much do I think I can do realistically in the coming days, and how exactly I'm going to plan it out. So let's jump in. So I'm done skimming through the narrative, and I think I've gotten a really good hold over the voice of the story, and I feel that I'm ready to jump into writing. But since today's plan was only to create a plan for how I'm going to take the story forward without really burning out, I don't want to force myself to write a scene today, because if I feel burnout today, then tomorrow I won't write. So that's a lesson that I'm taking from my NaNoWriMo failure. So now what I've planned for this vlog and this coming week is to finish chapter 17, which I've already planned out. So I already have the blueprint of what exactly I'm doing. Let me show you. So here you can see that this is a chapter by chapter breakdown that I have of my story. This is based on a very rough 3-act structure. I've also filled out the structure properly here with all the details of this story. And essentially what I have is a total of 22 chapters here, right? And you're getting a sneak peek of my character names. And right now I'm writing chapter 7. So on this side of the chapter, I love having the goal of this chapter. Like, what is the goal of this particular chapter? And here I've written story because this is a novel in stories. And then in my notes, I also have a scene by scene breakdown, as you can see. Again, I'm trying not to like show you the entirety of the draft to avoid any spoilers. But as you can see, there are like 10 scenes in total. And I have written about like 4.5 scenes. But the plan of this vlog is simply to see how I can get back into the groove of writing and finish chapter 17 and write those 5.5 scenes. So it's day 2 and I woke up with a sore throat. Talk about interruptions when you're writing your book. There are so many of them. Sometimes I feel like God is just sitting up there scheming, trying to figure out what more obstacles should I send in her way just to see how much she will overcome those obstacles to write her book. And this video is proof that I am not going to give up. Of course, this doesn't mean that if you're sick, you should still like force yourself to write. But right now, I don't think I'm like super sick. Also, I'm in a really motivated sort of space. Since yesterday, since I went through my novel journal and I looked at my story, my narrative, and I just sat down with all of that, reconnected with my story, which is why today I feel like extremely motivated, although I've spent like the entire day bed rotting, doing nothing absolutely. But now it's evening and today I just want to write at least one scene. And I also don't have any word count goals. Specifically because I feel like that's one thing we do wrong when we do NaNoWriMo. We set word count goals. And this is a mistake that so many beginner writers make. Even I used to make this mistake. I used to feel like the more I write, that means the higher the word count I have, the better writer I am, or the better I am doing in the process of writing a book. But that's not true. I have learned that the story itself is more important, like how further along you're moving in the story that you have planned. That is a lot more important than reaching a specific word count. However, for the sake of this video, I'll still try to give you updates on how much I'm able to write. But since I'm feeling a little sick with the sore throat, I feel like I'm going to not force myself to write too much or feel disappointed if I write too less. So when I'm writing from bed, I like to keep it very cozy and simple. It's just me, my pillows, my blanket, of course my laptop, and my headphones because music is important. I also have 3 simple writing rules every time I have a deep focus writing session, be it from bed. Number 1, I like having good music so I can get into the scene that I'm writing. Then I also really like having a big cup of water or a drink, which I've already had today. And then the most important one, I like keeping my phone in a different room or just very far away from me so I cannot pick it up and get distracted. With those out of the way, let's get into writing. So here's my update. I just finished writing my first scene of this novel after almost like 4 months. And I feel so happy and so light. And you know what? I'm really glad that I decided to vlog this process, because otherwise I'm pretty sure I just would have slept today, especially after I woke up with the sore throat. And now I also have a little bit of fever. But hey, I did some significant amount of writing and that's what I would call a win. Now I know that most of you want to see my word count, because no matter how much I say that word count doesn't matter, I know that this is a parameter that most writers judge their writing based upon. And even though I don't believe in like judging my writing based on the word count, I do want to know how efficient the deep focused writing session was. So here's my total word count. It's like 1423 words. Yes, that is the word count of that scene, that one scene that I've written. And this over here is like 83,123 words. This is the total word count of the draft. I realized that for some people, this word count would be a lot of words, and for some people, this would be like way too less words for like one writing session or for the overall draft. However, as I said, I only judge my story based on how further along I am in the process. And I feel like chapter 17 is finally moving forward. And on that parameter, my progress parameter, we're definitely making progress. Update for day 3. So I actually ended up losing my voice entirely on day 3 and I couldn't film at all. But I did end up writing about 200 words or so while still in bed because I didn't want to lose the momentum that I'd gained on day 1 and day 2. I know I was sick and I didn't want to push myself to write a lot because I was still feeling really exhausted. I'm actually still exhausted. It's day 4 today. But I wanted to, keep up that momentum and wanted to write some words. So I wrote one little scene which still created some progress. And today, day 4, I am planning to get 2 more scenes done. And these 2 scenes are actually the last 2 scenes of chapter 17. I'm really looking forward to writing these today because they form this cruise of climax of chapter 17, which I've been looking forward to write. So let's see how much we can get done. And I did it! I wrote about 2,000 words in today's writing session. Yes, so I actually did not take any breaks in between. I wrote 2,000 words straight, and which also means I did 2 scenes. This is a scene where my character faces their biggest fear and they have to overcome that fear. So it's not just getting through that fear in one scene, but they also have to overcome that fear for the rest of the story to play out. So yeah, this was a scene that I was really excited to write and I was looking forward to it. And finally I got it done, all because I was doing this, having all of you guys as accountability partners in this video. I'm so glad I vlogged this process because otherwise I think the moment I felt sick on day 2, I would have just again ignored it and I would have thought that I will do it sometime again later. But because I was filming, I was vlogging, I was able to do it and I'm so excited. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching until the very end if you did. Please like the video and subscribe if you want more videos from me. And of course, I'll see you in my next. Bye-bye.